we've come up with a KT guide, and I have some copies which I will leave with you. So when you're thinking about your grant proposal, but it also applies to after you have got the results, what would a KT plan look like? And so our intent is eventually to have this on the web so that applicants can actually work through this, and reviewers can actually start to think about, well, what should be in that plan? The other thing to keep in mind is I wouldn't want you to get the impression that, especially with project funding, you know, you submit a grant and you have to do a great big KT piece. Don't do that, right? Because you don't know what the findings are, or you shouldn't know what the findings are. So what reviewers should be looking for is, how are you approaching how you're going to do your end of grant KT? Not, I'm going to do these explicit things, because you may, and I've had this happen, where the findings actually turn out different from what you thought, and what you planned isn't, you know, you thought you were going to have this home run, and what you found was, yeah, it didn't work out quite as well. Well, in that case, you may not want to be doing that big KT plan. So the goals, the audience, the strategies, the expertise, and the resources, right? So you need to think about, well, what's the intent of the KT strategy? So going back to what I said about instrumental and conceptual knowledge use, right? So are you just trying to increase people's knowledge and awareness, which might be the case? You've made an incremental discovery, not sure where that's going to lead, but other people need to know about it so they can build on it. Or did you do the definitive trial? The trial's never going to be done again, and you actually found out that the vaccine's very effective and everybody needs to be getting it, and they need to be getting it now, right? Which would be, you need to inform, you know, policy and practice. So just kind of having a thought about, well, what exactly is it that we want? Do we want to change behavior? Do we want to influence practice? Are we trying to influence future research by saying, here, we've done this, the next avenue might be that? So clearly state and justify the proposed KT goals. So the audience, thinking through really carefully, right? We do the traditional thing of, well, we're going to publish and we're going to, you know, give presentations at conferences. Makes perfect sense if researchers are the audience you're trying to reach. But if you actually have something that's policy relevant, not a good approach. Like, it's good to do that because you need to do it for all sorts of other reasons, but from a KT perspective, you need to figure out, how do you get to the policymakers? So, clearly identify and justify the target audiences. So the strategies, well, how are you actually going to get the information to them? There are the passive processes around, you know, publication and put it on the website. But do you have, and which is great, it's out there. Well then, if you're thinking of the website, how do you drive people to the website? How are they going to know that it's even there, right? So thinking a little bit more actively. And there's all sorts of strategies that are out there. The Cochrane collaboration, anybody know about the Cochrane collaboration? Okay, we got one, that's great. So EPOC, Effective Practice and Organization of Care, is a subgroup of Cochrane. They spend all of their time doing systematic reviews of financial, regulatory, organizational, and professional behavior change strategies. So they only look at cluster randomized trials, intermittent time series, and I think there's a fourth one, but I can't remember it. And so they have 30, 40, 50. So I mentioned audit and feedback. I think we now have something like 150 randomized controlled trials of audit and feedback, and 30 systematic reviews of the 150 trials, right? Probably we don't need to do a whole lot more, but anyway, that's a different issue. So present strategies that support your KT goals and adapt the knowledge to the audience's needs, context, and use. So in your grant proposal, think about, well, what kind of expertise do you have? Maybe you need help from a communications department, right? As researchers, we think we're brilliant communicators. Well, we sometimes are with our colleagues, but even then we're not. Like, I don't know, it was Nature or Science, maybe 2 years ago. The editor wrote an editorial that was great. He took an abstract from one of the papers that he got, and it was this long, and there wasn't one English word in it. It was just acronyms, the whole sentence. And so they were doing an experiment with forcing people who were applying to them to write an abstract that made sense. And because everything has become so subspecialized, even experts in the area didn't have the knowledge to be able to read stuff, right? So that's among scientists. Now move that into policymakers, providers, the public, right? Do you have the right people engaged? If you're developing a computer software program, get the right people involved. And then resources. What's it going to cost, right? And think about this for a minute. You know, we have KT grants, synthesis grants. They're $100,000. probably not a good idea to say that your KT plan is going to be 75, right? And you're going to only use a quarter of it to actually do the study. And that's why we've actually developed another funding program, which is a KT supplement. After you have your findings, come back. It's short. It's like 5 pages. Tell us what the findings were. Tell us why they're important and what difference it would make. Tell us who needs to know about it, and tell us how you're going to go ahead and do that. And at the moment, they're 3 times a year. The next one is June 15th, and then I think October and February. And we're doing a pilot. They're $100,000 a piece.